Hello. Today on the Daily Red, we're going to talk about some red-hot issues. Communism is in the air, and it's causing quite the scare. Take a look.
Russia, March 1917. It was a rough time. Poor decisions of Russia's absolute leader, Tsar Nicholas II, not only caused him to lose his job as ruler, but it's the beginning of the scare that changed America.
I don't like your government.
No way, no way.
I think you need a new one.
Hey, you.
We could be your government.
Since he made so many poor decisions, he was overthrown by Alexander Kerensky. Because nothing had changed with the government, and Russia was still weary of war and in political turmoil, Vladimir Lenin and his followers, also known as the Bolsheviks, brought up the idea of communism.
What is communism, you ask? Well, communism is a bunch of stuck-up government men trying to take control of all the government and owning all the lands and property when they actually don't even care about the individual because they're just stuck up and stupid.
Brittany.
And they
Brittany!
think...
Relax.
Alright. Oh, I never meant to brag, but we're taking over your government now. Whoa, it was never our intention to brag, to steal everything away from you now. Being communist feels so good, 'cause one person will have control of you now. And if you could, you know we would, 'cause communism feels so good. Basically, this idea of communism began to spread to America by the foreigners coming in from Europe. It got to the point where bombs were being sent to government officials by mail. After this, the American government took control of the radical communist ideas, and officials sent American communists to jail and deported any communist immigrants.
We said you gotta go home. This is not the place where you belong. Just a communist, so get on that ship. We said you gotta go home.
Goodbye.
Peace out.
See ya.
Deuces. We said you gotta go home. Recently, Charles Schenck had a bright idea to mail letters to drafted soldiers, urging them not to go to war. He was convicted of going against the Espionage Act, which was passed for anyone who opposed war. Schenck claimed he was exercising his First Amendment rights. The court, Justice Holmes, justified silence to free speech when there is a clear danger, such as shouting fire in a crowded room. Also, the state of New York convicted Bernard Gitlow of criminal anarchy because he published calls to overthrow the government by force. Gitlow claimed he was simply exercising his right to free speech and press, but the court told Gitlow that he attempted to urge people to violent revolution.
Montag lieben Glauben globen.
As the scare began to get more serious, acts of violence became a serious issue. In June 1919, bombs exploded in several American cities, but specifically damaged the home of A. Mitchell Palmer, the Attorney General of the United States. This event caused him to believe that the radicals were trying to overthrow the government. Palmer, who controlled the Justice Department, set up raids and arrested suspects. In 1920, they arrested thousands of suspects without evidence and charged them with anarchy. Also, over 500 immigrants were deported. Most of those people were innocent, too. To show that Palmer had support, in April, 5 recently elected socialists were taken out of the New York State Assembly. But he lost his support in May when Palmer said on an annual socialist holiday there would be strikes and bombs everywhere, worldwide, and it never happened. So the press turned on him, and America lost faith.
On April 15, 1920, a gunman robbed and killed the guard and paymaster of a shoe factory in Massachusetts. Police arrested 2 Italian immigrants who were believed to be involved in the crime. Both of these men were anarchists, which is why this trial was so controversial. Even though police found the gun that was used on one of the men, people still believe they were only convicted because of their political beliefs. The jury found both men guilty, and 7 years later, they were sentenced to the electric chair.
Okay.
Okay.
So basically this part of our video is explaining what we just showed you guys. So the Red Scare started during the Russian Revolution. Tsar Nicholas II was the leader of Russia, and he made some pretty bad decisions about the war, which got him kicked out of his position. Then Alexander Kerensky took his place, made some poor decisions as well, so he got kicked out. And then Vladimir I. Lenin came to power with his little followers, and they call themselves the Bolsheviks. They are the group who brought up communism. For Lenin, communism meant that the government owned all the land and property, that a single political party controlled the government, and that the needs of the country were always put before the needs of the individual. Well, that's where the Red Scare comes into play. America heard about everything that was going on in Russia, and they were getting threats. The immigrants coming from Russia were trying to bring this idea of communism to America. I mean, actually, they were sending bombs to government officials, so when they opened their mail, they would just blow up and die. During all of this crazy time, there was a whole bunch of like the Schenck versus U.S. and the Gitlow versus New York.
Basically, in Schenck versus the United States, he told people who were drafted to go into the war not to go, which was against the Espionage Act. He claimed that he was just exercising his right to free speech. So the court decided that free speech can be silenced if it was an immediate danger, like if you shouted fire in a movie theater, like that. That's obviously bad. You're obviously going to get in trouble for that. And in Gitlow versus New York, Gitlow, he basically told everybody to overthrow the government and start riots to start communism because he believed in communism. And so when he went to court, he said that he was just exercising his right to free speech and press. The court overthrew that because he was trying to overthrow the government in a violent way, so he wasn't really allowed to do that.
And then in the Palmer raids, he was the Attorney General of the United States. There was bombings going all over the place, and when his house got bombed, he actually took control of the Justice Department and started this whole big thing about arresting anyone they had the slightest suspicion in. And they actually sent over 500 people back home. So it was pretty ridiculous. And he got people fired from their jobs, and it was just crazy. But then everybody stopped believing in him when he came up with this whole thing that the world was going to end on May 1st, and it didn't happen. So they lost faith in him.
In Sacco and Vanzetti, basically these two guys from Italy, they were accused of shooting and killing a guard and a paymaster at a shoe place in Massachusetts. And everybody kind of thought that they were wrongly accused, even though the gun found to kill those two men were found on one of the guys. And the only reason that they said it was unfair because those two guys believed in communism. So everybody just kind of figured that they were accused because they were communists and they didn't believe in our political beliefs. So it was real controversial with how they either did it or they were only wrongly accused because they believed in communism. And so 7 years after their trial, they were condemned to the electric chair.
Yeah! So basically, the Red Scare was just a whole bunch of controversy about communism, and it just got blown up because of the
Way out of hand.
Because of the Russian Revolution. So, thank you, Mr. Tsar Nicholas II. Your poor decisions caused all this.
Shame, shame, shame on you.
And now, we have some funny YouTube videos we found about communism and some pretty funny bloopers.
Yeah.
So,
Enjoy yourselves.
enjoy.